You know, this is the carrier you could sell to your next door neighbor and not have to leave your house and hide behind the bushes when you're leaving your house. So, you know, you can actually be like, hey, what's up, Jim? Good to see you. So we use these guys in our office. The service is excellent. We really have had hardly any issues. Zero outages. So they've done a really good job. Good friends too. You know, these guys are on point. They get the job done. You know, Mike and John are longtime guys in the business. So I entrust, you know, our larger sales to them. They have some nice differentiators. Since I stole everybody else's thunder, I'll steal theirs as well. They you know, they do a professional install, which
just keep on powering.
I'm gonna keep powering through. Anyway, handing it over.
Wow, what a segue.
By the way, John's gonna do the you know. Come on, do some of those.
Yeah, that move right there. Hold on. So check it out. Dan got it wrong. It's called the lettuce factor. It's when you sell your next door neighbor, you don't have to hide behind the lettuce when you see them in the grocery store because you don't want them to see you. And so, but you can hide behind bushes too. So basically. Yeah, Tampa. Well, okay, let me say it a different way. I've been selling hosted for a long time. I used to have, like, my hairline was way better, and it keeps marching back and getting thinner. And and so I was like, how did that happen? And I realized I've been selling hosted for almost 15 years. And that's how it happens. So we've got... I just mentioned a couple things. Dan and I worked together back in the BTI days. So I started in this business when I was 19, selling SDSL 144K, and T1s are $1,200. And so a lot of you in this room have been after it for a long time too. So you know what you are going to get with us is you're going to get some folks that we didn't. We're not fresh off the boat. We didn't just figure this thing out yesterday. We've been at it for a long time. So when if we get that shot to be in front of one of your customers, I can promise you that we win more deals than we lose. And we just won another one today. And I was tallying it up, Mike, and I've had agents that just send me on a deal and they don't even go. And I've closed close to 1,500 seats with on appointments that my agents never showed up on. That's like awesome. So you can own the customer, that's cool. I'd like to own the commissions. That's really what we're in here for, is to make money. So I will help you make money. Momentum will help you make money. I was trying to figure out maybe one of the best ways to give you guys a snapshot. I have a 150-page PowerPoint that's going to do that effectively. So we're going to dive in there, and I'm going to show you what death by PowerPoint looks like. But we're going to hit a couple slides, and there's a kind of a methodology that I typically bring into an appointment, and I just replicate it every time, because you have to educate a customer. Even though everybody in this room's heard hosted, we know hosted, there's still people that don't. I mean, when you talk about UCaaS, they're still like, whoa, you what? And so, you know, I know that's not the world you live in, but don't you take it for granted sometimes that customers know everything you do, and they do not know everything you know. So, you know, we start with an educational process with our end users, and typically something that I've just created over time is the 4 pillars of hosted, and what those pillars look like. And I'm just going to give you a little insight today on what that would look like if I was in front of your end user. And I think that's the best way you can, you know, like what you hear. If anything resonates, Mike and I will love to get involved, and we would love to be involved with your end user. You know, we work hard to bring deals in. Many times we're bringing deals in that our agent thought they were just over and they weren't going to come in. So we really don't quit. And I'm going to flip this over to Mike, but there's basically 4 pillars I'm going to hit today. The first one's going to be the platform, which I'm going to slide that over to Mike. We're going to hit a little bit about product. We're going to talk process, and we'll wrap it up with people. And this won't be that long, okay? Because I know you're going to get sleepy after eating all that chicken. So I think the best way to talk about the platform to start with, and I think a little bit, maybe an overview on momentum itself, is the guy that actually, he's the godfather of the Momentum Retail Program. That's right. The Godfather is here. Mike Feldman's in the house. He really is, and he'll tell you the story. So there's a couple unique things to start off with, so go ahead and tell these folks something they don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to give you guys a background on who Momentum is. The the world of VoIP can be extremely perplexing, not only to agents, but customers as well. Our approach, we really try to take a different approach, and John hinted at it, and it comes down to, we're not just replacing phones on a desk anymore, but to the customer, that's what it is. So our whole approach involves challenging them to think differently. We're not just replacing the equipment on the desk, we're replacing the vendor that has been managing that equipment for them. We're replacing the service provider, whoever's providing that local dial tone, long distance, international capabilities. It's important that the customer understand that it's a much bigger sale and a much bigger project than just replacing a telephone on a desk and the ability to make and receive calls. I've been with Momentum now coming up on 5 years next month. It's been an awesome ride, wild ride. Momentum, when I started, didn't have a single retail customer. We didn't have a single master agent. We were strictly a wholesale provider. So our largest customer back then was a company called Telecom. We don't run into them much in this market because they're on the opposite end of the country, but they are the largest CLEC in the US. Everything that Telecom did from a hosted perspective was Momentum. That was one side of our wholesale business. The other side was cable operators and municipalities. You look at the city of Marco Island. It's a place where AT&T and Verizon never got to kind of run infrastructure and deliver service to. That local municipality or cable operator is required to go out and get a voice solution to offer to their end clients, businesses in the area, so on and so forth. Marco Island's been our customer for many, many years. And we do that all over the country. What had happened is, and that wholesale business, just so you know, continues to grow. So some names you'll know is, FP&L FiberNet brings us in on all their voice on all their opportunities. Nitel is actually tied into our core network and resells our voice. We just did a big deal with Logix in Texas. So we're going to continue to grow and be that voice carrier's carrier, just because of how top-notch and rock-solid our back-end network is, and 10 BroadSoft clusters geographically located around the U.S. This stuff matters, especially to big carriers, and I think it matters to your big clients. As we continue to grow, we were talking with our wholesale customers and just kind of learning about the business, and they would bring us in and they'd say, hey, how do you sell this stuff? How do you implement it? How do you support it? Teach us. Help teach us to teach our teams how to be more effective. And what we saw in the VoIP world was a huge sense of irresponsibility. There was no accountability anymore for your customers when it came to VoIP. It was oversimplified, so to speak. After months upon months of kind of facilitating these relationships and helping these folks grow, they really wouldn't take our advice. So we decided to build our own program. And that is where Momentum Retail was born. 2012 is when it started. And I don't want to steal too much of John's thunder, but the main differentiator that came out of it was we're going to do on-site implementations and training and support for all of our customers, regardless if they pay for it, regardless of the size. And it was so well perceived throughout TCG and throughout all of our partnerships around the country, really, that it's just been growth after growth, explosive growth year after year. We're the only company that I'm aware of that does it nationwide. It's our own employees, so we don't 1099 anyone. They're not third parties showing up. They're our own Momentum sales engineers. The average tenure of those guys is about 3.5 years. So for a program where you have 5 years, we're sending in rock solid sales engineers that are actually going to implement this solution. So part of the value that attracted John, and the reason I was able to kind of get John to kind of fill my space when I got promoted, was he was like, he came from hosting. He knows it. I mean, he sold it at his last company, sold it at his last 2 companies. Not only that, he's a student. You saw him asking questions about, zero outages and data to go. So it was really kind of revolutionary for him to hear that we're going to have that accountability on site and invest in your customers before we ever ask them to pay us $1. So that's kind of where the whole process started, and we decided to build it up from scratch. And I'm excited to have John kind of go over the differentiators and the different product sets that we have. But we really tried to launch this to be completely different, and that accountability piece on site, as well as our expertise in voice throughout our tenure since 2001, I think we really bring something great to the table. Sure.
A couple of questions for you. One, do your BroadSoft servers have live failover, geographic failover?
They do. So, and it's within each other too. So we have 5 sites. I'll pull up the map here in a second. But we actually have 2 full BroadSoft clusters at each one of those Tier 1 data centers. So back when we were launching retail, it was a huge discussion point. Do we build a separate network for retail? so we can lower that price point, because obviously if you have 10 BroadSoft clusters behind you, it's a more expensive product than it is if it's just one BroadSoft cluster. We decided that the enterprise level business we were going after would really benefit from having a core network like John has up on the screen here, and we decided to move forward. So our core network for wholesale is also our core network for retail. Full redundancy both within that location and fail over to other sites.
So do you, so for example, DIDs, if one of your BroadSoft switches goes down, DIDs will fail over to a geographically diverse
Correct.
location?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically, we mirror, it's a mirror image across the 5 data centers. I spent most of my career working for a company where we had 2 data centers, and that was good enough to sell thousands and thousands and thousands of seats. So I think the takeaway there is 5 is better than 2.
Well, most customers don't ask, right? They don't, because they don't know to ask.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
And two things that have come up that I just want to share with you before I kind of kick it over to John and kind of slide back a little bit, just because most folks in this room have heard me present before, is one, we've grown to the 2nd largest BroadSoft provider in the US. And number 2, when you're looking at the underlying platform, BroadSoft is extremely important to look at. You know, it's the numbers are there in front of you. They own 40% of the global market share of all cloud PBX. There's a reason for that. We trust a publicly traded company that's 10 or 20 times our size to manage that platform, manage the integrations that happen with that platform on the back end, tying into Salesforce, and really where John and I view voice is it's just going to be another application on the customer's network. So
You want percent trunking as well?
we do. We do.
The same platform?
We do. With our BroadSoft SIP trunks, and
So it has the same failover?
yeah.
And we've been doing it at a high level on the wholesale play. So you know that's another thing. I mean, I know that we can create a silly named VoIP company today in this room, and we can say, hey, we're BroadSoft, but it doesn't mean any one of you guys knows anything about BroadSoft on how to actually provision it, troubleshoot it, actually know how to be an engineer on it. So we've got, I guess we just see it every time we go to a new trade show. There's somebody else, you know, like, hey, we're BroadSoft. But it's, you know, I liken it to this, and I'm not trying to pull this back, but I think we're about in that stage. But I'm waiting a long time for this, Mike. Anyway, so you're blowing my shot. No, you're good. But you know, like there was a show with Patrick Dempsey about his dream of racing Le Mans in the Le Mans series with like a Porsche. And the thing that stood out to me is there were like 8 Porsche teams. Everybody had the same exact car. There were different drivers, but it was really the engineering squad that made the difference between the 1st place team and then the 8th place team. So if I could leave something with you, I would say that we've got the best engineering team. And you know, people are one of those pillars I talked about. We have 452 people. I know that doesn't mean it's as big as AT&T or maybe some other provider you deal with, but from a BroadSoft provider perspective, that's huge.
Very rare in hosted VoIP to have a company that you look at revenue versus employees, right? And if you're you know, our numbers make a lot of sense. $125 million in revenue yearly, 400 plus employees. It's the right model for success and able to give that hands-on approach. The other side of this is, I don't know if you've run into enterprise level clients before, and they're extremely interested in the profitability of the provider they're going with. We are completely private. We did purchase a publicly traded company about 1.5 years ago, but we're happy to share, as long as they're willing to sign an NDA, kind of share our corporate financials with them so that they understand there's a tremendous advantage of being a customer of a profitable company that's on the uprise, as opposed to someone that's just trying to attract customer share and either get bought or get sold.
Are you talking about Altiva?
Yes, that was the acquisition that we did.
Maybe could you get into how you integrated that?
Yeah, sure. So,
What that did for you?
absolutely, yeah, that's a great point, Lou. Thank you. So, I mentioned to you that we launched retail in 2012. We built our own implementation processes, built our own support processes, built our own sales engineering implementation processes. What we didn't have was an awesome product set. We didn't have a lot of integrations across Salesforce and various CRMs. We didn't have any calls, you know, beyond the BroadSoft call center. We didn't have a lot of advanced call center where you're leveraging companies like InContact. When we purchased Altiva, or we call it a merger, even though we took them private from being public, it doubled us in size. It gave us a whole other partner base that they had to go ahead and sell into, and it gave us a whole rock solid product set that they were a very product first type of company. They believed if you had the most innovative products in the marketplace, that was what won hosted VoIP business. So we were able to kind of take momentum, which was the rock solid network, the mentality of, hey, we're going to do on-site implementations with our own sales engineers, and combine that with what Altiva brought to the table, which was an awesome product set and an awesome product development team.
Is InContact your call center application?
It is. So based on that Altiva relationship, we sell InContact services on our paper. They sell our services on their paper. So we're one of their providers that they bring in for the underlying dial tone. But yeah, we would bring InContact in if you have customers looking for web chat integration and all types of advanced statistics. One of the deals that we kind of just celebrated a couple of days ago was a deal that David Rubin sold, 12K plus MRR. They did a combination of Momentum and InContact, and it was just an awesome deal, and they're fully implemented and happy. So that was a huge win, and we're trying to just drive more business like that, because that's where we really thrive.
What is from a base perspective, what is your SIP trunking price?
For an unlimited SIP trunk with one path, it's based on call paths,
Yeah.
consecutive call paths, it's $18.
Okay.
But
Metered too.
metered is 13. But what you get is, what you'll see that our SIP trunks and our hosted phones all authenticate to our network via username and password. Because any provider that's doing a hard-coded IP means they're only going one place. With a username and password, we can move traffic any way we want. They're just locked in, they're just authenticating into our network. So SIP trunks perform the same way that a hosted phone does. I'm sorry? Oh yeah, Cisco Call Manager is one of our most robust offerings, and as well as Avaya.
I have another customer that needed 20 Los Angeles DIDs out of their Florida SIP trunks through an Avaya IP office. And basically, I called into customer care, or maybe I sent an email that morning. That afternoon, I had 20 new LA DIDs provisioned on the SIP trunks. Like 4 hours, less than 4 hours.
Yeah, working with ACC, I'm trying to get 100 block of 100. So far, I'm 30 days in.
Yeah, no, this was like, I was shocked. It was so fast and so clean.
So we can always expect 4 hours?
No, 3 hours.
Did you say 2?
Did you pay him?
Yes, we did.
There's an envelope, yeah. The Godfather.
This is true.
The Godfather, yeah.
It's a true story.
Right, it is. Yeah.
Nice deal, by the way, Dave.
Yeah, great. So, so the Godfather of retail. All right, thanks. All right, that was awesome. Well done. No, hang up here. No, it's good. You
I'm gonna let the young prince take over.
Yeah, it's all good. So a lot of these things that you see on the screen are things that are going to be in your rearview mirror. We do not believe in the blame game. What we typically find is that our engineers will dig in deep, even if it's cable. And I've been in the game long enough to watch companies like I used to work for say, hey, oh no, we'll do it over coax all day. And once the customer's up and running, they'll go, oh, it's coax, man, should have bought our bandwidth. Well, weren't you the guy that just told me it was going to be okay? And yes, I was, or yes, we were. So one of the things that was really refreshing for me at Momentum is the fact that we'll dig down into utilization reporting. We do deploy Edgewater. We talked a little bit about platform, which I think you get BroadSoft. They're actually, at this point, the largest PBX provider in the world, which is pretty amazing. So there's something to be said there. But there's a couple other pieces, in my opinion, on the platform side. BroadSoft's obviously one of them. Edgewater is another big player, and you see that replicated across folks that are out there doing it and doing it well. We do put Edgewater devices in. We don't necessarily require it has to be in every single opportunity. We know there's some customers that are like, I don't want that sitting outside of my my firewall, and we'll work through that with our engineering team and the customer's technical team and you. But Edgewater is a big piece of what we're delivering there, as well as Telecom. That's really a rock solid triple play there when you have Broadsoft, Edgewater, and Polycom. You know, I've worked in environments where we would try experimental phones, Grandstream, and some others that you may be in love with in this room, but some of the challenge with that is that you just don't have the lab time like a Polycom has, and a lot of times you don't know the issue that's going to come up on a device until it's up and running in a customer environment. And you say, hey, when I transfer calls and there's 3 calls over here and this thing's going on in the queue, this phone drops completely. And the reason I bring that up is, you know, Polycom has just been a really good partner of ours, and so that's really how we go to market. And our goal there is no surprises. So it's going to be something that's predictable for you. You know, the Polycom issues that are out there, at least we know what they are and they're in front of us. And we're not going to learn about a new issue in a live customer environment. Okay? But getting back to what I was saying about utilization, and if a customer is using their own cable circuit, which is very common, our engineering team will dig down, pull utilization information. If you're already using zero outages, I don't have to do that at all. Okay, so then they'll do it. They'll open the ticket. I love that. Let's do that every time. But if not, we will dig in, and we've resolved multiple cable co issues. Part of the reason for that is that, as Mike mentioned, on a wholesale platform, who has more experience than Momentum working with cable codes, with our hosted? I mean, that's a huge part of our business. So we're really used to interfacing with the regional cable companies and the folks and the franchises they have out there and getting them answers. So we basically take that same acumen and we're able to deliver it to you for your customers. So the blame game, it goes away. Another way to eliminate the blame game is to have our own people on the street. We're going to beat that horse the whole time we're up here. So there's different models, different deliverables. I've worked and seen them all. You know, one is obviously plug and pray. You buy it online, get it shipped. That's a different customer than we're going after. So just know that. I'm not down on that customer. People are making a lot of money doing that. If that's a big part of your business, do that. But that's not our business. That customer that's willing to say yes to that is not the one that's going to be the best fit for Momentum. So go ahead.
No, I didn't expect you to finish your sentence.
Oh, you're that important. And yes, we specialize in 100 location car centers. Keep going. Dealerships.
What's the name of that dealership again? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So, when you guys sell the bandwidth to go along with hosted offering, I presume you do, are you marking it up significantly, or is there just a small bump in there that the customer's going to say? You know, so the customer can say, well, okay, I'll buy it from them because they're going to manage the whole thing. It's a little bit more, or is it going to be like double?
So it's a great question, and I'll answer it directly. I've seen it both ways. I've not necessarily with Momentum. I know the model where our fiber is more expensive because it's better fiber from the same company you can buy it from. Lie, and you can get the same COS profile as you can get directly. But I've seen that model. That's not what I'm seeing at Momentum. Now, who's going to beat a tier 1? Nobody. Right? I'm never going to be as competitive as Comcast Direct or Bright House in Orlando or whoever they are now, Spectrum. But what I have seen is the bump is not grotesque. It's not something that I'm embarrassed about, and it's something like when you see the quote, you know, it's going to be in the ballpark range. You know what I mean? So I probably won't be the cheapest guy on a piece of paper, but I certainly won't be the most expensive.
20-30% is a conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is not.
That we will not be double.
It's more than 20 to 30%. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say that, you know, 95% of the business we're doing is over the top, BYOB. Just because there's, you know, two reasons that I see. One, and I think kind of the suppliers in the data center space are really see this the hardest, is that carrier wholesale rates are more expensive than the retail rates nowadays. So it's really difficult. It's a weird kind of phenomenon that's going on. And number two, there's so many regional-based fiber providers and now cable providers that are just doing such an awesome job. You let them do what they're good at and let us what we do good at. We feel real confident between VLANing and edge marks and traffic shaping we can do. We rarely have issues on voice quality.
Yeah, you know, the sellers won't throw the choke.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Sure.
and listen, that's I think that we're going to see an evolution on that pitch a little bit with SD-WAN. I think we're going to see some interesting things take place in the oncoming years. I think we're in an evolution stage right now, and so what we are seeing though is, and here's the other part that you probably won't ever hear. Aggregators do not have control over the bandwidth they sell, and they don't really have great visibility. Now they'll pitch it to you, but I've already been there, done that, and it's really, when they say aggregator, just think aggravator. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So like, it is the truth. So like we're excited about, you know, if you want to add the bandwidth on that, but there's no passion or drive internally to be like, oh yeah, we got a fiber circuit. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't even exist at all, actually. Yeah. I'd like it to be at least somebody say, yay, good job, but it doesn't happen.
I can certainly see the partner perspective as far as the...
I don't even get quota relief, okay? Let's talk about this.
It's true. It's true. We do not want to sell it. Yeah. It's kind of a pain point for John, but we won't open that up. But, you know, as technology continues to kind of evolve faster than it ever has, eventually you got to get to the point where you realize who does what best. The folks that are heavy into broadband and have the right solution for the customer, they're not the right solution for voice. And honestly, we are the right solution for voice, but we're not the right solution for broadband or connectivity. You know, I mean, that's essentially our approach. We have been involved in various customer scenarios where it would benefit, but it's very hard to kind of build a structure without picking one provider. And it's very rare that one provider can get everywhere. So it's something that we'll consider as we grow. But for now, most of the business is BYOB. But you know, Nitel opens up some doors for us, so give us a shot.
I sold one today.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter though. So let me step into that a little bit further. So when you well, there's a lot of carriers, and I've been the mouthpiece for a lot of them, which is we'll do everything you need. We'll do your POTS lines, we'll do your MPLS, we'll do blah, 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 blah. And the truth is, they do not have the support resources to manage all that technology. And what I mean by that is, they got a bucket group that handles POTS, and it's a tiny bucket. And they got a bucket group that handles internet, and they're a tiny bucket. And then they've got some engineers, the folks you'd actually want to talk to, they just do hosted. So it's one of those things that the promise of, oh yeah, we'll get the bandwidth and everything's going to be hunky-dory, Joni love Chachi, it just ends up not that way most of the time when it gets down to support level. So that's just something to think about. So we're going to just continue, so you're saying there's a chance. So we'll just keep on diving in here. So we talked BroadSoft, we talked Edgewater, we talked about, oh, one other thing too, is we'll give EdgeView, which is basically the management portal, we'll give EdgeView to the IT director, and we'll let him peer through the network and see what's going on with the traffic. So it's one of those things, not all the hosted companies are willing to do that for the IT manager or whatever, but EdgeView is something that we don't charge for, and we just give it to the end user, and we find that they really appreciate that. The visibility level that they get is a pretty, it's something that's appreciated. So we already kind of run through this about Momentum Network, broadband, which is a great point. And obviously the LAN, we'd like to see Cat 5e or better. You know, that's what we'd like to see. So that's important. We talked about utilization and information, so we'll have reporting available to whoever needs to see it. Many times we'll resolve the issue on the cable circuit just by the data that we're able to give an end user that would never have access to that, especially a coax user. The fiber group with the cable co's, they're actually pretty decent, but when you're dealing with just a regular coax support person, you know, you have to tell them where the problem is. Okay. We talked about portals a little bit, and you know, that's a key thing to take away today. We'd like you to, is that our wholesale experience makes for a great retail experience. So I'm not going to go product by product here and wear you out. You're welcome. What we will do is probably highlight a couple of these just because I'd like them to be sticking points. We are so far past making a Polycom work on a desk. That's why there's not a Polycom in here today. So any monkey can plug in a phone, and I've done it for years, and and make the phone power up. That means nothing. Zero. How are you handled during implementation? How are you handled after you're up and running? When I heard that TCG was a Momentum customer, I told Mike, that's either the worst idea or the best idea someone's ever had. And I pray to God it's the best idea. And it's turned out to be that. Proof's in the pudding. Talk is cheap. Everybody's fighting to give Dan free service. But who's going to take care of him? I mean, that's like mic drop, walk away.
Did a good job.
And I was like, you need to hold the microphones.
Yeah, this is Bob Barker. All right, no, it's the tiny ones. You play Plinko.
Constantly upgrading the network, which we love.
Yeah, we're expanding. You know, that's just like one of those pitches if you're not selling hosted in this room right now, you need to get in the game. You got to get in the game. If you don't get in the game with Momentum, get in the game with somebody, but get in the game. This is a huge growth market, giant, and you know, that's the beauty of it not being static and it being dynamic, hosted in data centers, because we are. Now, that brings up a good point, Lou. We are not on the most cutting edge version of BroadSoft, and that is for your sake and your customer's sake, because they'll come out with a brand new, hey, if 4.2.1.2.2.2.0, get it. And the bugs aren't worked out, and it's got some cute bells and whistles, but it's not worth instability in the customer environment. So what we do is we purposely stay a couple releases back so we can see the issues when our competitors release it as soon as it comes out. So that's another one of those things that we do to keep you from hiding behind the lettuce.
Exactly, and that's actually a best practice of our wholesale group. So it's actually in our wholesale agreements that we have to stay within 3 versions of the latest release. So it forces us to consistently upgrade and kind of enhance the platform, but at the same time, we're not the breaking point or the early entry into the marketplace where we have to worry about working out those kinks for BroadSoft, because that's essentially what happens.
Yeah. So a couple things we'll hit from a product perspective, because I think we beat the platform down pretty good. So from a product perspective, does the phone work? Check. Is it a Polycom? Check. What if they have existing Polycoms? Check. We'll bring them over. If the customer wants to buy the Polycom, they can buy it. If they want to rent it, that's what Mike and I like. We get paid commission on rental, and so do you. Rental's great. The pitch on the rental is, if anything happens, we replace it. It is more expensive than a lease, duh. You got me. And I like to just tell customers, yeah, you're going to pay a premium for this, but everything is included, and they appreciate the honesty. So we do rent them, they can buy them, they can lease them, they can go out on Amazon and we'll just configure them for them. You can sell them to them yourself, make money, do the lease yourself, and then we'll just configure them for them. So the total flexibility on how they actually get the phones. But when you get into the actual product side of things, there's probably 3 or 4 things I'll mention. I'm not going to hit all of our different products. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot more is call recording and the request for it. So this can be 1 or 2 ways. It can be always on, which is the primary way it's delivered, and everything is recorded to a URL, and the customer has access to the web portal. They can listen in on the call as it's going. The call is recorded. We have connectors that we can link that call record into their CRM, which is a nice touch. So if they want through a CRM connector with Salesforce, which I'll talk a little bit about, but through this connecting tool, whether it's Salesforce, Goldmine, or Microsoft Dynamic, whatever it might be, they have the ability to connect that recorded call based upon the phone number into an actual opportunity entry. So that's not another step they have to do. So they can add that to an entry within Salesforce, and again, making it easier. Selling this thing for as long as I have, it used to be a race to the bottom, and you've all rode that train, right? Just who can give it to us the cheapest. We're not that carrier. Who can give me the most efficient solution? We are that carrier. And you have to determine with the customer, Okay, but a lot of times the customer, just because of what they've asked, doesn't mean it's what they need. So as long as we can hit a $500 threshold, I'd like to be involved with it because I might help get you some more commissionable dollars.
Great point to that too, and a great story around call recording. It's a funny story. You'll probably like it because
It's funny.
actually hilarious and surprising. But so we're working with this client. John mentioned it earlier. We would love access to the end client with as much involvement from you as we can. And the reason is just the questions that we want to ask are at a deeper level than we believe until we work together for a little while that you would be able to get to as far as how our solution and how hosted really plays into it. I was at a law firm. We were going back and forth. I refused to kind of deliver pricing because it was a huge law firm and I had to understand the need. I know they have billing platforms just from my experience that they have to integrate into. I know call recording is a thing for transcription. So as I'm with the customer the other day, I'm talking downtown Fort Lauderdale in a building on Las Olas. They got 3 full floors of the building. I said, how are you doing call recording today? We're holding up a tape recorder and putting the person on speakerphone.
This kind of stuff happens.
And it's like when I told them that they could call record and just email the file to to whoever's doing the transcription, they were like blown away. But it was not a conversation that they were having with the partner. You know, it wasn't getting that deep. So it was just a good story, and I was like, wait a minute, so you're holding the tape recorder up to the speakerphone? Yeah. I'm like, okay. You know, so it's
So what's happened is, you know, when you're familiar with something, it just becomes contemptible and it's not that big a deal. So you guys are overexposed to technology, and you know, yeah, I totally know about that. I've known about that for years and years. So it's just a good point. We're dumb enough to find these opportunities where you know, it's something that's simple like that. So that's a great point, Mike. That's a great point. And I've had customers that wanted to do recording on demand, and instead of it always being on, and that's also an option with us. And so it's just something to consider and think about. I won't wear you out about why they do. You know, mobility, unified communications as a service. You know, you kind of have to have this app if you're going to be in the game these days. So, you know, you got to have some type of messaging app where you can see the folks that are in your organization. You can see if they're available. I know this isn't the first one you've ever seen because this is a UC product off of the BroadSoft. We did a little badging, but the reality is almost every BroadSoft provider, they just put their logo in there and it's basically the same thing. So I'm not going to act like this is our sweet jam, but I do have a sweet jam to show you. So if you want, you know, messaging, having the app on your cell phone, having on your cell phone, it's already there. It's great. The new version that's 3 months back, but now it's released. It allows you to do multi-point video, which is really nice. So you can add in people that aren't on UC1, which is a really big step forward because it used to be only folks within your enterprise you could bring onto a live video call. But now you can do video outside, and the whole goal with BroadSoft's trying to do is trying to catch up as best they can with Skype for Business because they kind of got left in the dust with that. Which brings up my next, from a product perspective, something I'd like to mention, which is Skype for Business. We think this is, well, we're seeing this is one of the most relevant conversations we get to have in each and every meeting, as so much the rise of the managed service provider, they are killing it right now. They are. They're just on they're on an uptick, they're on an upswing, and they're doing big things. And a lot of Office 365 is just everywhere, as Microsoft products are always embedded. But a part of that is Skype for Business. There's a basic licensing that comes along in the Office 365. And so what this means is that we have interconnected with Microsoft at our data center level, and we're able to do something with that. So what Skype for Business will do for an end user is it gives them a single platform for messaging, for video. You know, I think they've won the day from a collaboration perspective. You know, I mean, there's other companies that are doing it, but you know, when you have Coca-Cola, do you really need, you know, do you need Pepsi? I don't know. But Skype for Business is doing a good job with that. The issue is Skype is cute. Skype for Business is cute, but it's not really a great phone system. It's neat, collaboration's cool, messaging, they do it really good. but it's not a great phone system. And primarily, there's a fracture point that's a big issue, and that is you don't get presence all the way to the desktop Telecom phone that sits there. So if I see Robert, you show like you're available on my Skype for Business app, I click to call you, oh, you're not there. You're messaging me back, hey John, I'm on a call that you can't see because it's on my desktop phone. Yo, isn't that great? Well, it's not great. So what we've done with Skype for Business is we've integrated with them at the data center level. So now I can deliver presence all the way down to that desktop phone and all the way back to the Skype app. So now it flows together and I can see if Robert's on the phone, and so I don't have to worry about that. I could just message him now and say, hey man, I got this call, I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it to your voicemail, and you're like, thanks buddy. But now we're really connected. So there's a promise with Skype for Business, and the promise that Link wanted to give, which is to bring it all together, just didn't quite get there.
Does that mean that your Office 365 contacts will appear on the phone as well as in the phone directory?
It's a good question. I don't know that actually.
I don't have the answer.
I'll have to follow up back up with you on that, man.
And we won't BS you. How about that?
Yeah, promise.
Don't know.
Essentially, what John hit at, who doesn't have a Microsoft 365 license these days? It's sitting on their desktop, whether they use it or not. Pretty much employees across any organization. Skype for Business, Link, going back to its roots, they really have some fundamental offerings that they believe in as far as the video chat, the inter-office organization, being able to communicate with folks outside of your organization, but they've never had any goals of being a PBX. They never had a goal of being a 4-digit, dial the extension and be connected to the user, being able to transfer calls to extensions. Presence was another hole. So what you get with our solution is you get momentum handling everything from the PBX side, and then you have all of the best and cool features of Skype for Business layered on top while not relying on that and kind of integrating throughout. So,
who are you paying for the Skype for Business? Momentum?
Yes.
It depends on your license. So,
That's a great point.
When you have a license already, it's a different price than, it just depends if they're on E5 or what, but it's very custom and tailored to the licenses they have today.
But if you have a license for Microsoft 365 and you have a Momentum
You're gonna,
VoIP seat,
yeah.
You have to still pay Momentum
Yes.
a fee
Yes, you do.
and tether them.
That's
Exactly.
correct.
And it's actually a bigger question than that, and it gets even more deeply rooted into, okay, do we want to actually move that license and let Momentum manage it and be the customer of record so that you don't have to spend the extra money, or do you want to pay to have kind of dual licenses set up together? So it really just, it's customer specific and fully tailored. It just depends on whatever license they have today and what they're looking to do.
we get our nerds in on that though, Dave.
Yeah.
So we won't be the guys figuring that out. We'll get our super nerds in there, and we're some of the best nerds you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So
But you would essentially transfer the EULA, the license from Rackspace to Momentum, and basically then it would work.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could talk to it at a deeper level, but I'm involved in a sale right now where the guy was looking at just kind of migrating his licenses over, and now it's to the point where we're taking all his exchange and everything and managing it all for him. So I'm not fully in touch with the ins and outs and what works better, but I do know if you have a license today, it's a cheaper cost to integrate Momentum, and you also have the ability to kind of stop paying Microsoft and just pay us for it.
And working with some managed service providers that, this is kind of a up and coming thing, what we just talked about, that migration. As soon as they realize we're not trying to steal their cheese, they're usually really good with it. And I'm like, listen, no, you keep that, that's fine. You don't have to necessarily change your license level, because that seems a little disruptive sometimes. So a lot of times it's just adding on the Skype for Business integration on the Momentum side. And the way you really parlay it is this. Instead of paying for Mobility Messenger, which is this product, which has a carrying cost, instead of those dollars going there, it's going to go for your integration between Skype for Business and Momentum. Does that make sense? That's really the bucket that I present it to a customer in. It's, you know what I mean? It's not so much you're paying your managed service provider and you're paying us. It's more like, well, do you want this with its inherent, it does some cool stuff, but it's got limitations in comparison to Skype for Business. So for a real practical way of delivering that is, this is X versus a full integration with your Skype that you already know and love. It's a really quick conversation, and Skype wins every time. Okay? Just, one other thing I'll just mention is, and you still say, okay, so I'm just getting presence? No, you're getting a lot more than that. You're getting all the feature functionality set of the most powerful PBX in the world on Skype for Business now. Now Skype for Business is a good phone system because you have access, because of our integration, to all the BroadSoft calling features. So there's just a huge chasm of, you know, feature-less things from a phone system perspective on Skype for Business. Now we fill in all those gaps once we bring the BroadSoft into it, including one of the features that you've seen and heard for many, many years is a call pull, which is, you know, star 11. So you can take that call from your desktop phone, and from star 11 through the Skype app, you can pull it to your Skype app, and then Skype app on your mobile phone, then Skype app on your soft phone. Skype. Say Skype one more time. CRM integration, we talked about it, a little bit about this. The only thing I'd like to add to it is these are conversations you have to start having, and maybe you're already having them. But if you're not having them, at least let me have them with them. Because when I talk to an end user about efficiency gains, and if you don't have, if your rep doesn't have to pull up that entry every time that caller calls in, and it pulls up that opportunity and it already starts logging the call, I mean, is that, you know, the efficiency gains are there. The other thing is that the willingness to develop outside of the box. When, you know, I have a customer, we just won the deal last month, and it's about a $6,000 a month account, and one of the things that was critical to them is like they've custom written their own CRM through a .NET application, and the actual chief application software engineer works there. He's the IT guy, the director, and so we're working with him to write something specific to their .NET application. And these are conversations once you get in the throes of. I'm not saying price goes out the window, but it just is not the same conversation. Okay.
It's another way to really challenge how the customers are doing business or how they're choosing the provider. You know, telecom contracts, which we still fall under, even though we consider ourselves a cloud provider as far as a standard 3-year, technology is evolving faster than that. Businesses are evolving the way they do business faster than that. For you and what you're looking for as far as long-term and really maximizing that customer value is they might not be using these integrations today, but are you going to put them with a provider that will allow them to grow into it and have that capability, or are they going to be stuck in a contract and never have that capability without penalties? So CRMP is data. What I've seen, at least in my opinion, humble opinion, is you see all the Salesforce, all the back end, you see all the CRMs, including some of the ones listed there. Data is the most important thing to run any business. Without the data, you cannot grow and increase efficiency and productivity. So businesses are realizing that. If depending on what phase they're in, you start showing them they can get some data, they'll be your customer for life.
So trying to land the plane here, we're going to come in, not coming in hot, but we're coming in for a landing. So one of the last things I want to talk to you guys from a product perspective is the call reporting, call analytics. This is another point where Mike brought up that I think I just want to echo it, which is it's just a little different approach to just the bloodletting in the street on who can get to the lowest seat number. And the challenge to a customer, and I position this is when I show them a screen like this, they go, well, okay, wow, that's some neat information. A lot of customers, they've never seen a screen like this because we have gotten to a bad habit in our industry. The bad habit is this. Do you have a call center, Joe? No. Well, we just forget reporting, we forget asking questions, and they don't have a call center, so we just pull all that back like they don't need any data or any information. We learned that in just selling, a lot of times like T1 and stuff like that, and then we'd ask if they had a call center, and it maybe didn't resonate as much. But what customers are saying a lot of times, and a lot of times what we find is customers, they don't even really know what they are missing, right? And there's a drastic example, like somebody actually putting a tape recorder, I didn't know they made those anymore, but a tape recorder, whatever it is, onto a phone and recording the call. But when I ask the next 3 questions to every business owner, it always resonates in the meeting, which is this. How many calls do you guys take in on an average day? Becky? Sam? Oh, okay. How do you know if you're doing a good job? Oh, let me guess. If no one calls and complains, you're doing a good job? Yeah. Okay, great. That's awesome. So that's not a good way to manage your business, clearly. How long do people stay on hold before they hang up? We don't know. Okay, you don't know until they call back angry. So one of the things that I like to unpack for the customer is like, I can show you a way to manage this outside of a call center. I can give you this calling data outside of a call center environment. You're gonna pay for it, and you should pay for it, because you need this data to make business decisions. How do you know how many staff you need? You don't know how many staff you really need until you balance it off based upon calling metrics. So this is the thing, guys, that this is like feel around the green. You got to know how to sell this, and we are excellent at selling this. I sell a lot of this, and this is why we close a lot of larger deals, because we're getting off the beaten path of saving them 15%. A lot of times I don't even go there at all, because these days it seems like it's never enough.
Two things I'd like to add. So one, BroadSoft being kind of, they evolve features and everything fast, just as fast, as not faster than anybody, and extreme reliability across the platform. What they don't do a good job at is reporting. Their raw data is there, but they don't give you any type of built-in reports, or you can't customize reports. They really don't do a good job of it. We found this, the company that we use is called Akixi. That's what this product is. Their entire goal of being in business is to take raw BroadSoft data and turn it into reporting, live real-time reports, and then wallboards and dashboards, like John kind of just mentioned to you. Second part is that the reason this data is not being talked about is just because historically it never was. Part of, if you have a premise-based system with a service provider like Windstream, half the data is on the PBX, half the data is from the service provider. There's no way to loop it together and deliver that data to the customer as encompassing the entire, all the activity that had happened, because it was kind of separated. This is tremendous value that hosted brings, just inherent of itself, but we just don't talk about it enough. So this is definitely one of our largest differentiators, and helps us win call center deals. But again, to John's point, it's not just a call center. The regular 20-seat customer, they can really benefit from this data, and it's very value priced. It could be $1 a user. So
it could be $1 a user, and the conversation we're trying to have here is a much deeper conversation, and one that you ultimately want to have with your end user, so we can help guide the way there. We don't think that we have it all together, but there are some things we do have together, and we'd like you to be able to tap into that. What you're looking at right now, when I show this report, if you're the first person to show this report to your customer, they're going to thank you. All right? And what this report is an unreturned lost call report. Mr. Customer, this is going to show you every call that your organization missed today, meaning they hung up before anybody got to them. Now you're going to note there's two colors on this screen. One's red, one's green. The green ones are ones that somebody in your organization has already called back. The red ones are the ones that no one's called back yet. This is such a valuable report. Now I can pull the call details on this. And when I get to the call details, my internet's connection is running slow. I wish I had another provider, just Verizon. I just have Verizon, and it's just not the fastest right now. So anyway, so if it wasn't creeping along here, it would already display the calling metrics, but it'll pop up here in a second. So what this does is we review everything in a call segment format. So I can show a customer cradle to grave everything that's happened with the call. Specifically on this one, which is one of the green ones, I'm able to see the device the calling information. I'm able to still see information on the ring time, the call talk time, and this is information that is important to export. It's important to have data that I can manage from. And so this will show me who called them, when they called them back, and most importantly, I can export this data. I can see how many people the call was presented to. Obviously, this can be a deeper dive, because if you have a call center, there's a lot of different routing things that I'm not going to necessarily drive into, but you're able to track a call from each segment, so you can go from segment to segment to see what's happened in the actual call. So this is business owners see this and they're like, man, that's awesome. And if you're not the only agent in a deal, you got to differentiate yourself somewhere. And some of you guys are amazing salespeople, and some of you might be mediocre salespeople. And that's where you have to have some solutions to bring to the table. And we'll help you do that. Okay? And Mike mentioned this. I chose to come to Momentum I was not needing a job. I looked at the platform. Dan will tell you, I called Dan. I said, Dan, like, you know who I am. I know who you are. No BS. Like what? Like I need to understand some stuff on where I need to be with a carrier that's doing it right. And so I received a direction. I'm standing here today because of that. We had a neat basketball game one night, a pickup game, where I basically got offered a job in between shots. And
my recruiting.
Yeah, the recruiting style was amazing. And then the next day, Mike called me and said, "I was for real." And I was like, "Okay, well, let me." And I couldn't say no, because the deeper I dug in, I'm like, "Man, I actually believe in this company." I have put a ton of revenue up on the company since I started, and I don't have a single unhappy customer.
How about Spiffs?
Good point.
Was there somebody else that told you to gave direction as well?
It wasn't Nate.
Oh yeah, Nate.
If anybody, it wasn't Nate. Training portals, you don't care, but they're there.
Yeah, I mean, but the main point there is we didn't just turn over the raw BroadSoft portal to the customer, which most providers you can do, kind of inherent of your relationship with BroadSoft. We built our own. It's Momentum's portal. It's back-ended to BroadSoft. It's much more user-friendly. It doesn't let the customer get in trouble in the portal and kind of start deleting stuff without, you know, the proper notification. So,
You see that? Now, you can get this from your friendly neighborhood TCG channel manager, this data, but
What does the fine print say below?
nothing. Anyway, so like let's get back to focus where we are.
it's too good.
Now, focus, come back. But David, I'm glad you mentioned talking, because David's got a great example of where we won with an amazing account. It was a large account, and I'm not calling you a horse, but we'll hear it straight from the horse's mouth maybe about the job we did, and then I'd like to hear from Danny, and then we'll just let you guys go. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But we have spiffs, we pay them, we love to pay them. We like getting our agents as much money as we can.
For sure, and what it comes down to for us is we give you flexibility, right? To working with John or working wherever you're at in the country with one of the other channel managers, it gives you the flexibility to kind of make Momentum fit where maybe they wouldn't by, you know, as long as we can sell profitably, the spiffs will be there. And as we have to take margin off the top, your spiffs go with it. So that's kind of, you know.
We'll eat at the same plate.
Yeah, it's not, it's what I didn't want to do in this industry, and what there's a lot of is if you discount at $1, you don't get any spiff. So what I wanted to do is have like a working model where you might not get the 6X because we had to throw in some stuff for free because the competitors, you know, in your customer's ear about something, but you could still earn the 5X. You know, so that's kind of the working relationship that we want to go. We don't do a lot of transactional, we don't do any transactional business. Everything is consultative. Believe me, John wants to get you guys paid. So he'll be out there trying to value sell and get the customer the right solution, having them thinking differently about how they're doing business, hopefully challenging them on how they're doing business today and that there's a better way. And the commissions are there.
And as we just wrap this up, we really do appreciate your time and attention. I know you probably felt like you had to listen to us, but
Can I ask a quick question?
please.
So are we, can we sell the whole municipality thing like through TCG, or does that just go to wholesale and we can't get paid on it?
Usually just goes to wholesale. So the way we've kind of shaped the business is that our wholesale is not like what you would find in our competitors is like a white label. Like you actually have to have certain minimum. We have like high minimums in place, like $250,000 a year.
You have to own a billing platform.
You have to own a billing platform. You have to have your own support and implementation thing. So what we try to do is create. You either fit better in the VAR model or you fit better as a wholesale customer. We I'm trying to think of that Riverland or something like that. I think I won their business like 4 years ago. City of Riverland in Miami or something. Does that sound familiar? I think it was. I'm trying to think of who the partner was. But anyway. In rare cases, we can. I don't know if the city of Marco Island, but hey, let's do it. I mean, we could be flexible. So.
Yep. And then the last thing here is on this implementation. It's just important to know that our the model for most carriers is how quickly can I get this third-party tech in and out. because they only gave the customer a quote that said $250, and there's an asterisk under that, and it says this is for 2 hours worth of billable time, and any additional time will be billed in addition to that. What that equates to is the customer sold a $250 install charge, or whatever that number they could get away with, and when they get their first invoice, shocker, the install didn't take 2 hours. It took 8 hours. And then they get a $1,200 bill. And so one of the things, we'll eliminate that heartache. We put our guy on site for 2 full days. And the reason why is because the second day stuff breaks, stuff comes up, changes are made to call flow, and we'll be there on site to make any adjustments and do some on-site training as well.
Plus remotely, plus remotely as well.
Well, of course, the ongoing support is there. What I'm getting at is having someone on site for 2 days with a third-party tech is hard to do. It's hard to get somebody to agree to that, and that's just our standard business approach. So that's all I have. Mike,
Yeah.
you got anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate your time and attention,
Cool.
and I guess we'll leave some time for some questions, unless there are none.
They kind of asked him as we went.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Danny, take it away, buddy.
That's it, boys.